Today, I wanted to share something because there's this kind of, I guess, contradiction or that I hold with ethical culture. On one hand, there's a part of me that loves the transcendentalism that informs informed Felix Adler's kind of inspiration to begin ethical culture. The kind of idealism and imagining uh, what can be possible through, really trying to realize into the world certain ideas, whether it's justice, whether it's love, whether it's ethics. And a big part of that is obviously relationships. I refer to ethical culture, and some of you may disagree, and it's okay, but as a religion of relationship. I come to understand and describe to other people that the spiritual tool of ethical culture is relationship. That is where we try to realize transformation, transcendence. And so but it also leads me to reflect on my own relationships and also the struggle that I have in many kinds of relationships, whether it's romantic, family, work. And I say, am I able to live up to the very thing that I have attempted to be not only like to sort of claim as my sort of philosophical orientation, maybe even faith, but as a even, as a vocation. And so I drew out this talk because I think I was around February or Valentine's Day when I was working with uh, Riverdale Yonkers Society for Ethical Culture, and I was like, I want to talk about love, but I don't want to talk about romantic love, and I wanted to talk about some kind of relationships that I felt I could actually realize, or I have realized, some of the power and the sort of hopefulness uh, that is sort of implicit in ethical culture when it comes to relationship. And so one of the big sort of ideas and quotes that's always influenced me, and I love from Felix Adler, is he talks about when you sort of get to know someone, you become the portrait artist of the other. You know them so well that you can draw them out and kind of uh uh the details. You're paying attention, and it's also not even just you're drawing out them currently, but you're also imagining and coming to know and also pushing that person to the person they could be. So you become the portrait artist in relationship of the person that you love, and the portrait artist, the portrait you're drawing is the person who they can be, and your relationship hopes to push them towards that. And I thought this idea was always beautiful. I thought it was inspiring to me. But then I ran across a quote from a writer, Hanif Abdul Karib, who who does the really beautiful essays around the intersection of music, basketball, and relationship. And he talks a lot about grief and love. And he has this quote that really challenged me. He said, I think sometimes, even in love, even in our desire to love someone in a very big way, we are perhaps rushing to love the imagined person. Sometimes in my rush to love someone, I can see myself rushing past the actual person and trying to love the imagined person because the imagined person is a little bit easier for me to love. And I want to say that last part. The imagined person is a little bit easier for me to love. And I thought about, in the context of ethical culture and Felix Adler and my sort of belief in relationships, what does that mean for me? And I can think of times in the past and not so far past of trying to love an imagined person, trying to really coax someone to being the kind of person that I felt it would be possible for me to love, instead of loving the actual person who is there. I feel this sometimes for my own family, for my particularly relationship with my mother and father. I feel like they imagined a son they were going to get. I could give you the descriptors. uh, Harvard educated, a Christian, uh, possibly a wee bit less queer, right? But and the son they have, me, sometimes I feel like this is. I'm not sure if I feel the love for that person, and so I that quote and sort of reflecting on the relationship. Where do I feel the love that's transcendent? And when I so with the reason why I thought of revolution, I thought of love in sort of this context was because some of these relationships where I felt possible to be my most expansive self, they had some kind of qualities that they shared. There were people that I had met in certain kind of instances in our relationship had this kind of, it felt like space. It felt like room to grow. And that if I had said to you, this would be our relationship, at the time to myself or to the other person, I think we'd all be really surprised because there was no script for the relationships that these were forming. Um, and so I decided to kind of talk to these people and to sort of ask them, well, what do you think about our relationship? In case I thought I was, losing it. In case I thought that I was maybe having not a kind of communal or relational experience. And I was like, this is, I said over Zoom, I said, you are someone I think of that I have a kind of unique relationship with. And this is why. And then we had a conversation. And so the, the conversations, I wanted to share these folks' idea of revolutionary love because one, I feel like they share an investment with the idea of transformation that I think actually is part of the reason that connects us. And revolution in the sense of realizing liberation. And so this is something I think we share, and I think is important. It's fundamental to these relationships. But then there's, I think each of the unique relationships have also other qualities that say, okay, this is a person that the openness of what this could be and be realized in the journey and the process, it feels comfortable, it feels safe. Well, actually, let me take that back. It's not comfortable, as you'll see by a word. It's another word, stretchy. I'll come back to that word. But it also feels enlivening. So I want to share kind of what each of these folks said about revolutionary love. And I'll kind of give you a little bit of the background to each of these person in our relationship. Cressa Molly Mason is a professor of philosophy and also an artist. And our relationship began because I lived a few blocks away from one of her apartments, and she would always be on the porch. She loved being on the porch and writing and journaling and dreaming up and thinking. And I lived a few blocks away, and I had a good friend who lived around the corner from where she was. And I would see her, and I was, oh my God, what a beautiful person. And this sort of neighborhood crush that it was normal, very Christian, right? But just imagined like, oh, this person could be someone I would love to know more about. And over the years, we've developed a very a relationship totally different than I could have even imagined in those kind of first moments. Um, we have collaborated on art projects. We have commiserated during the pandemic, gone through stretches of tension. and learning how to navigate disappointment. But her, I remember the kind of first time we got really close. I was talking to her about during leadership training, which I was talking about in the beginning of this conversation when I signed on today, sort of with Judy and sort of talking about how it's been a long time since we met. I had just started leadership training, but I remember really trying to work and reconcile humanism with the the black authors and thinkers that I knew who maybe didn't express that they were necessarily humanists, but I saw humanism in their work, and I was like, in question as a philosopher, I said, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Should I be doing this? If I see Toni Morrison, and I read Beloved, and I say this is a humanist text. This is yes, it has some very supernatural aspects, and it has a range of sort of historical and fantastical elements. But I was like, I feel like she's talking about how a person comes to basically appreciate their inherent worth, right? Or comes to form into themselves. And in that conversation, she said, part of the reason why we might be seeing these threads is because people are thinking about the things in the world, the things about that impact our lives. And that conversation really struck me. And so Crescent defined revolutionary love as about reconciling difference, a rejection of love that is about completion and reflection. The other is a radically different person, foreign, while close to and of me. The other becomes not a threat, but an acceptance of how we are also alike, and leads us to be caretakers of another's selfhood, capacity, and worth. The kind of love that pushes us to build our capacity to not assume knowledge, but listen to and gain it. So I see, like, so for her, revolutionary love is about the sort of appreciation of difference, and also finding the likeness between us as well, and developing the tools to thread through those. There's another person that I met through a mutual connection, someone who had done a year of service with me in a program called City Year in Philadelphia. And he said, you have to meet my friend Chris. Not to mix me up with, I'm Christian, he's Christopher Rogers. And it was a happen chance meeting. And I was like, okay, cool. And I went to take photos at his birthday. It was an okay photo that he really loved, his profile for a while. And then over the years, as I grew into my photography practice, and we came to collaborate on work, and came to come to each other to like solve problems and think through things, I realized that for a person that I grew up with women all the time, that so I don't have a lot of close connections with men. He became one of the most important relationships in my life. And this is times we may not see each other, we may not necessarily talk to each other each day, but there's a kind of openness and I want to say grace. There's a part of our relationship that felt really nice. Really, it feels and continues to feel like a secure place of support that feels mutual. And Chris Rogers, when I asked him what did he think was revolutionary love, he said relationships that make us aware of ourselves and our connections to one another in ways that feel manageable but also stretchy. So back to that word stretchy. It starts with the self, your own revolutionary love practice, which is informed by the people in your life and the cultural texts that you engage with, which helps us grow in capacity to relate to others. So Chris, there's a kind of to work study, right? So understanding your context and your relational place, and then sort of looking to connect those things, right, through the study uh, to further grow. And then I have my one of my favorite folks to talk about, who also our relationship kind of started from photography interaction, where I took a portrait of Amber Rose, and Amber Rose is a multi-talented powerhouse, a thinker, a writer, scholar, but also kettlebell enthusiast. And one of the things that during the pandemic was really difficult for me is that I had a sort of an exercise practice and routine that I thought was important to keep up, but I couldn't keep it up the same way because my body, from sitting, doing Zoom, not moving as much, not having access to gym, could not do it the same way. And so I was like, okay, she took this risk with me. Again, go back to the word stretchy to like, try to capture her and do a portrait. And and then I took this risk trying something that was out of my comfort zone. And the first time I did kettlebell exercise, I hated it. But once I went back and I tried again and I kept going and I was like, oh, like this is working on things that I didn't realize were important. And even though there's tension and sometimes our processes and approach, Amber Rose is very strict about form, and I'm more kind of exploratory and trying to reconcile and involve different things. We come to this understanding that our kind of sometimes conflict is actually an important part of us figuring out how to be in community with each other. So Amber Rose said, revolutionary love is a moving horizon. It is ever changing. You cannot arrive there. It is a love that wants to escape all parts of harm and enclosure. Love and revolutionary are not separate words, they are intimately connected. I don't know what revolution is without love, and I don't know what love is without revolution. It's like the pursuit of freedom, and the love part is the action behind it. Praxis being thought, action together, or action that is working out the thought that is revolutionary love. So these folks are, sort of melding these ideas and sort of, bringing these words that I in around praxis, stretchy, selfhood, and I'm sort of like using these folks to sort of say, okay, what is my definition? There's one more person I think, our difference, going back to sort of Crescent's point, uh, but our commonality sort of brought us together and has provided a fruitful kind of garden space for our interaction. That's Sierra Vercillo, who's a um, food anthropologist. And we met in Ghana. And what I think we shared was a delighted uh, engagement with our otherness, right? To attempt to transcend our otherness. And I don't know if it's transcendable, but I feel like we both were enamored with this culture and we were figuring out ways to be genuinely and ethically a part of it, a part of this world. And in Tamale, Ghana, dealing with Northern Ghanaians, trying to learn the language. For me, the language. For her, it was trying to learn the food and the customs. And we have kind of used that kind of foundation to have a really expansive, way more expansive relationship than I could ever imagine. We talk about our struggles and the things we dream about, and we share kind of our next steps and our goals, and where um, a project that we collaborated on called almost indirectly, where I had supported someone by trying to help their food. Um, they wanted to document the lost recipes of their culture, and so I raised money to take a camera to Ghana. And Sierra then also ended up working with this person and tried to connect them with this sort of global uh, network of indigenous food folks. And it's been this kind of, like this really wonderful kind of collaboration outside and with this community. And so I kind of want to share my understanding of revolutionary love. This is that revolutionary love is a love that recognizes the world around us and allows that to influence the world between us. In that, in honesty and awareness is reflected back and between us. So much so that the imagined person doesn't exist, the still other doesn't exist, but we're allowed an infinite capacity to shape and create. We then build worlds between us, and the space of our relationship acts as a seeding ground to see that world outside of us. In the process of that world of that seeing, exchanging, we foster a love that cares for us in a way that subverts and challenges the way the world tries to love us, or rather, not love us at all. So if you could, I hope that in the way you could see the pieces of each person's definition of revolutionary love influence mine, and because there's a the piece of me that I feel like ethical culture has just shaped is the idea of pragmatism and capital pragmatic, capital P pragmatic, and that pragmatism for me is the idea that, like, the truth is what works, but also how we get to that truth and how we come to understand that truth is from a diverse array of voices and expertise and knowledge, right? That comes and helps us form that greater understanding of what truth is and also what works. And so I was hoping that could, that's demonstrated. Now I kind of want to invite you all, after I've been kind of yapping and talking, I want to share these poems with you, because these poems, I'm big about platform not just being a place of a passive experience, but something where we are also practicing our what it means to be an ethical culturist. And so I have this multiple ways. I have a um, file that I'm sharing in the chat, and I have a link to a Padlet that I'm going to share so that people in the audience can see the poems. Um, okay, so I want the folks in Zoom to click that link, the document. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and I hope I like, as far as accessibility, we're going to be able to see the poems in the room. Are you able? Oh, let me stop share. What are you seeing right now?
That was just a black screen, Chris.
Oh, it's just a black screen. Let me try again. We okay. So I think what happens is I can't share it during when it is already in full screen. I have to make it full screen after I share it. Just talking it through, still working through the pandemic.
Okay.
Uh so are you able to see this, everyone?
Yes.
These list of poems?
Yes.
Okay. I used sort of a um community uh what's the word I want to say? Basically, I try to aggregate these from folks that I knew in my own collection of poetry. But I wanted to share these and give you all an opportunity, as I'm sharing these, to think about people that you have a relationship with that feels like a garden, that feels like particularly a natural. What's that term when you have you use plants that are particularly native garden, right? That in an environment that feels natural, that is conducive to the growth of these seeds. Like, what relationship feels like that? That you spread and take risks, and that something grows. It may not be organized, it may not be sort of perfectly set out, but it feels expansive and it feels fruitful and it feels nourishing. So as I read these, I want you to think about that person. So I'm reading Friend by Gwendolyn Brooks. Walking with you shuts off shivering. Here we are. I am with you to share and to bear and to care. This is warm. I want you happy. I want you warm. Your friend forever is what I am. Your friend in thorough thankfulness. It is the evening of our love. Evening is hale and whole. Evening shall not go out. Evening is comforting flame. Evening is comforting flame. Next one is for Teresa by Nikki Giovanni, who recently passed away. Yes, this is a very, very difficult loss for the Black community and just poetry at large. But when I was alone, facing my adolescence, looking forward to cleaning house and reading book and learning bridge and maybe learning bridge, so that I could fit into acceptable society, acceptably, you came along and loved me for being Black and bitchy and hateful and scared. And you came along and cared that I got all the things necessary to adulthood, and even made sure I wouldn't hate my mother or father. And you even understood that I should love Pepe, but not too much, and give to Gary, but not all of me, and keep on moving till I found me. And now you're sick and have been hurt for some time, and I felt guilty and impotent for not being able to give yourself to you as you gave yourself to me. Sento, Between the Ending and the End by Cameron Awkward Rich. Now, Sento, this is a little bit of foreshadowing, okay? Sometimes you don't die when you're supposed to, and now I have a choice: repair a world or build a new one inside my body. A wild door opens into a place queerly brimming, gold light, so velvet gold. It is like the world hasn't happened. When I call out, all my friends are there. Everyone we love is still alive, gathered at the lakeside like constellations, my honeyed kin, my honeyed light beneath the sky. A garden blue stalks, white buds, the moons, marble glow the fire, distant and flickering, the body whole, bright, brimming with the hours of the day, beautiful nameless planet. Oh friends, my friends, bloom how you must, wild until you are free, until we are free. And Jean Valentine. Once I was talking to a friend, a religious man, about the closeness of friendships in childhood, and he said, what you are talking about is God. Mercy on our gropings, our silences, our harm. Mercy or nothing is enough. Mercy on our deceptions, endless, our endless longings, our words that go like smoke into smoke. Some shelter for my friend, for each one, quiet, talking alone together to rest in a while. So what I hope to do, I hope to encourage you all to find a line in this poem, in these poems, and maybe find a few lines that reminds you of your friend or that relationship that I asked you to think about. To gather those lines and almost make it like a piece to them, a poem to them, a letter to them that shows a gratitude for your relationship. So a cento, which I was sort of referring to, is a poem made of lines from other poems. So you can be creative. I asked for folks in the audience to have pen or paper. That document that I shared in the chat will make this easier for people online so that they're able to copy and paste the line. Folks in person don't have that luxury. But one of the tools that I do is I put one at a line that I think would be the first line, and then I put two at another line. and then I sort of read them out from the count. You could do it that way. You can copy and paste, or you can take a line and make something out of it and continue it on your own. There's an openness here. I hope that we can use the final few minutes of this to craft something that reminds you, that honors the relationship that you have, that you're thinking about. So I'll be quiet and allow folks to give it a go. So what you're doing is making a poem out of the lines of the poems here. So you can choose the lines based on the ones that affected you or reminds you of this friend. It doesn't have to be long. It can be very short.
So does anybody want to share any poetry that they created, either in the room or in the Zoom room? Pat?
Your poem just and what you said today just made me feel that if we are all warm, then there are so many possibilities. You used the word stretchy, but first you need to be warm. So that's why I said, I want you warm.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very beautiful.
Well,
Anyone else have?
I may have cheated, but I didn't do that because I'm so busy doing this. But I was very, I love the idea that you see ethical as a religion of relationships. And that resonated with me. So that's your poetry to me.
There's a little alliteration. Yeah, it's there. Thank you, Judy. All right. Well, thank you all for tolerating me and my cough, and I hope I can come again in person this time. Next time, and hear from you all. See you all in person. Uh, yeah. So Judy, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Christensen, and continue to feel better, giving us a lot of food for thought. And I'm sure some of us have taken some interesting things home with us.